Hi students, welcome to Civic Education with the Perfect Tutor. We are still looking at the topic Constitution, but this time we are going to look at the last two subtopics. Let me just call it one in fact. We're going to look at the Constitution adoption process. Remember, in the previous video, we looked at the Constitution making process. From that process, a draft Constitution is made. Now, for it to be accepted as the national constitution, it needs to undergo certain processes, or let me say a process. So that process is what we call the Constitution adoption process. Then we are also going to look at the characteristics of a good constitution. Characteristics of a good constitution. Apart from that, we are also going to look at the importance of a constitution. The importance of a constitution to the country. So let's start. Constitution adoption process. This is a process of approving the copy of a draft constitution so that it becomes an official document. A copy of a draft constitution. Remember, I said during the constitution making process using a constitutional review commission, the president appoints that using the Inquiries Act. So that group of people known as the Constitutional Review Commission will collect views from citizens through sittings conducted countrywide. And from those views, they'll come up with a draft constitution. Now, for that draft constitution to become the national constitution, it needs to undergo a process known as the constitution adoption process. So we are approving it now so that it becomes an official document. There are two main methods which are used to adopt the constitution of a country, and these are: one, by parliament, and two, constituent assembly. Constituent assembly. So constituent assembly is appearing on both constitution making process and constitution adoption process. It's appearing. Let us quickly look at adoption of a constitution through parliament. I hope you all know parliament. So under this method, the draft constitution is submitted to parliament. Remember, when the CRC collects views from citizens, they come up with a draft constitution. So that draft constitution is submitted to parliament, which debates the draft constitution before adopting and sending it to the president for assent. So parliament will receive the draft constitution and debate it. After debating it, they will make changes if necessary. After that, they will adopt it and send it to the president for assent. The president should sign to approve, to say this is an acceptable constitution. Zambia used this method for the first three constitutional review commissions. That is the Chona Constitutional Review Commission, the Mvunga, and the Mwanakatwe. So during these three constitutional review commissions, Zambia used parliament to adopt the constitution, meaning it was being submitted to parliament, parliament was debating it and sending it to the president for assent. I hope we're together on adoption of a constitution through parliament. Now, let's talk about adoption of a constitution through a constituent assembly. The definition still remains the same. A constituent assembly is a board of representatives elected by their respective interest groups to formulate, amend, or adopt the constitution of any country. So even during the process of adopting a constitution, a constituent assembly can work. You just choose a body of representatives to adopt the constitution. You say, oh, these they will adopt even if we don't involve parliament. We trust them. Representatives may be drawn from churches, learning institutions, trade unions, civil society, etc., etc., as it was described under constitutional making process. It is independent and also free from control of the government or any person. It is independent. because it's just representatives drawn from different institutions, trade unions, civil society organizations, so that they can go and amend or adopt the constitution of a country. So it is free from control of the government. Countries like India, Namibia, Ethiopia, South Africa, America adopted their constitution through this process. I hope we are moving together. There is what we call National Constitutional Conference. This one is similar to Constituent Assembly. It is similar to Constituent Assembly. This method is also used to adopt a constitution. It is similar to Constituent Assembly, except that under the National Constitutional Conference, the adoption is done by Parliament, which can decide either to adopt or reject the draft constitution. Either to adopt or reject the draft constitution. So, go back to Constituent Assembly. What happens there? During adoption of a constitution through Constituent Assembly, a body of representatives will be elected. The same body will amend or adopt the constitution, meaning they will make decisions on their own to say, oh, we've agreed this is the constitution of our country. No control by any government official. No control by Parliament. But for National Constitutional Conference, quite alright, a body of representatives will be elected. But remember, listen, pay attention to this one. Parliament will be involved here. For the National Constitutional Conference, Parliament will be involved. It is the one that will decide whether to adopt or to reject the draft constitution. This is how it is. Now, let us talk about the characteristics of a good constitution. How should a good constitution be? Since we've drafted it, or let me say we've made it through the constitution making process and we have adopted it now, how should it be if it's a good constitution? What characteristics must it possess? 1. It must be clear. The language used in it must not be too technical. Ordinary citizens, other than lawyers, should be able to interpret it. Your constitution is just written in English. What of those people who do not know how to write and understand English? How do you expect them to understand the laws of your country? The constitution must protect the rights and freedoms of citizens. It must protect the rights and freedoms of citizens. Must cater for the interest of various groups in society. Not just for the women or just for the men, just for the vulnerable. No. Interest of various groups in society. Constitution must protect and respond to the social, economic, and political needs of citizens. That's why salaries are there in the Constitution. Things to do with economy are there in the Constitution. Political needs are there in the Constitution. It must protect and respond to your needs. Social, economic, and political needs as citizens. The Constitution must be stable and stand the test of time. Stable and stand the test of time. Use it for a long period of time. Note, here comes the president, Edgar Chagwa, he amends it, changes, this law will not be there. Here comes President HH, no, I will put this law. No, a constitution must be stable and stand the test of time. It must be able to be used for a long period of time. It must not be easily amended at the pleasure of any president who comes into power. I hope we are together here. It must be neither too rigid to prevent change. So meaning it must be rigid to prevent change, but not too rigid, nor too flexible, So it must be flexible, but not too flexible, because if it's flexible than enough, then it can encourage tampering with the basic principles. If it can be changed at the pleasure of any president who comes into power, then they would just say, today I feel like changing this law. I think let's do this to the constitution. Now, it's not like that because the constitution is not too rigid, not too flexible. So these are the characteristics of a good constitution. Now, what are the importances of a constitution? Why do we need to have a constitution in the country? One, the constitution sets out the composition and functions of the wings of government. It is in the constitution where it is stipulated to say the executive wing has got these powers. The legislature, the judiciary, all their roles are described in the constitution. So it sets out the functions of the wings of government. It ensures democratic governance. It ensures democratic governance. It is written there to say after 5 years you need to vote presidential elections. You need to have general elections. So you can't run away from the law. So it ensures democratic governance. It gives equal opportunities for individual development. Everyone, as long as you are qualified, you can be deployed by the government in any category you are qualified for. So the constitution gives equal opportunities for individual development. Not just those people from Eastern Province are the ones who can work as teachers. No, it's not like that. It is owned and guarded by citizens. It is owned and guarded by citizens. It promotes and protects the rule of law. It safeguards the fundamental rights and freedoms of citizens. These are some of the importances of the Constitution. What have we learned? Constitution adoption process is a process of approving the copy of a draft constitution so that it becomes an official document. There are two main methods which are used to adopt the constitution of a country, and these are Parliament and Constituent Assembly. Remember, Constituent Assembly is appearing on both instances, the making process of a constitution and adoption process. A good constitution must be clear and protect the rights and freedoms of citizens. A constitution is important as it ensures democratic governance and promotes the rule of law. These are just some of the points that have been taken from what we have learned so far. If you haven't been able to grab the concept here, kindly feel free to repeat the video, watch it over and over again until you understand the concept of constitution making process, so that even in the exam you will be able to answer all the questions that